This video deals with the hood part of the grandfather clock, and although the wooden case is completely constructed and stained, there are other minor pieces of woodwork which have to be fixed inside to enable the fitting of the mechanism and all its component parts. The first picture shows the rear view of the case, but on the upper part you'll see there is a wooden piece across, and this will be used to mount the chiming rods, but that will come after the mechanism and the dial are in place. Below that is a shelf which is where the clock is supported, the clock mechanism, but also there is a slot in that wood which enables the 6 chains to be pushed through, and they hang inside the clock, and then the weights are attached. You can see here what I was faced with. The mechanism, the brass mechanism, which looks and is effectively brand new, was in a plastic bag, and it is in excellent condition, and at this point I was hoping that it would be in perfect working order, even though it hasn't had any action for 34 years since it was manufactured. You can also see the dial which is face down, and the mechanism is attached to that dial, but first of all the dial has to be positioned accurately at the front of the case. You can now see the dial is in position, and this was very tricky because it had to fit exactly in both directions, horizontally and vertically, and also look as if it was exactly central. You'll see this more when we look at the other side. If you look closely at this picture, you will see how exactly the dial fits, including the phases of the moon part and the arc around it, and it has to be in exactly the correct position. But this was quite difficult because initially the dial is held in place by 2 strips of wood on either side, which are holding it by the screws which are tightened up. Another view of the hood with the dial in place, and you can see what is involved in positioning the mechanism onto the dial. Another view just showing the chains, obviously not dangling down, but it looks as if there are 6 chains, but there are actually 3, but they go inside the mechanism around some spoked wheels, and the weights are actually used to pull the clockwork mechanism down, in effect winding it up. I took this picture just to show how awkward it was, even though the blocks supporting the shelf I have pre-drilled, but I couldn't have done this without this very short cross-headed screwdriver. This shows the piece of wood which holds the chime rods assembly, which is on the other side of the piece of wood, and that was just to test that it was in the right position. Another view showing the hood, the mechanism, and the chime rods. The chime rods look a little bit strange there, but they actually have to be bent into a vertical position, not splayed like they are there, but also the rods need to not only be positioned exactly to hit the hammers in the clock mechanism, but they have to be bent and positioned very carefully to get the right tone or the right note. This is an inside view looking from the bottom area of the clock, which enables you to see two metal plates which tighten into the underside of the slotted shelf. This makes it more stable and will remain in place despite the vibrations from the clock movements and the chimes and strikes. This is just a view of the clock mechanism, the upper part showing the hood and the dial and the mechanism installed. You can tell that the mechanism is there as well because you can see the chains hanging down inside the waist part of the clock. This shows the whole clock standing on the floor with the weights in position and also the pendulum. Despite the fact that the clock mechanism had effectively been installed, I then had to take it apart to be able to position the chiming rods and also the mechanism when it's fixed to the dial via 4 pillars. This has to be finished off by inserting 4 tiny pins into those rods to make absolutely sure that the mechanism stays completely connected with the dial. If you are able to zoom in on this picture, you will be able to see where the chains are connected, and also the 2 hammer assemblies, one being for the chimes and the other for the hourly strike. You can also see on the left hand side of the picture the 3 weights. You might be interested to know that if you were looking at the front of the grandfather clock, the centre weight drives the timing mechanism. The one on the left weighs 4 pounds, being for the striking action. The centre one for the clock, also 4 pounds, and the right hand one for the quarterly chimes. This one weighs 6 pounds as it has more work to do. In a 12-hour cycle, the 4 strike hammers operate 78 times, but the 4 chime hammers operate 480 times. Just to finish off this video, this picture shows the inside part of the weight. The brass cylinders that you can see in the clock are hollow, and inside there is a bar of steel. Unfortunately, one of them, for some reason, was a little bit bent. So I thought I might not be able to deal with this and I might have to get a replacement, but I put it into this vise, which is fixed onto a Black & Decker workmate, and then I rotated it slightly and used the wooden hammer not to bash the weight but to bash the handle on the vise, and just kept moving it around until it straightened up, and then I was very pleased to find that it slid into the metal cylinder quite easily. The final video next time will describe the project overall and will include a few more pictures and a video of the clock in operation.